If you're asking yourself, who or what is a Cthulhu, then we'll tell you. And if you do know what it is, then I guess congratulations to you on your knowledge of the occult. Basically, Cthulhu is a giant monster that has a terrifying face with tentacles, which he probably uses to grab you and eat you with. The body of this creature is huge and scaly and armed with terrible sharp claws on its back and front feet, and it has long leathery wings like a dragon to top it all off. The deity probably is never in a good mood and likely always hungry. If all that sounds scary, don't worry, it is. But you also really shouldn't worry because he's apparently in a deep sleep on an island in the Pacific Ocean somewhere. Or is he? If you like scary stories about monsters, then check out these 5 Cthulhu sightings caught on camera and spotted in real life. Before we begin, make sure you hit that subscribe button to get notified every day for more amazing content. With that being said, let's begin. Number 5. Cthulhu spotted on Google Earth. As technology advances, along with those advances comes the ability to better explore the planet. Humanity has seen just about everything there is to see when it comes to dry land, but the oceans, that's another story altogether. There is no telling what could be hiding in the depths of the oceans or the seas on the planet. And if something wanted to hide from humanity, this would be the very first place they would choose to hide. If you think about it, that's kind of a scary thing. And when you think about it, we've been to the moon and are planning to send humans to Mars, but we still haven't explored the oceans or cracked any of its secrets, and only 5 to 7% of them have been explored. The point of all this being that sometimes mysterious things show up in our oceans that are hard to explain, such as this mysterious photograph of what some people think is the legendary Kraken, or even H.P. Lovecraft's cosmic entity, Cthulhu. It appears that some people like to use Google Earth and search in the middle of nowhere, and sometimes Google Earth will turn up some things that are pretty bizarre or unexplainable. The photograph in question shows some large creature that looks like a giant octopus which is surfacing in the middle of the Southern Ocean. If you look closely at the image, it does appear to look a bit like a giant squid. However, some people think that it might be a whale or even some rock formation. But then, of course, other people do believe that this is actually Cthulhu. And by the way, according to Lovecraftian lore, Cthulhu's called the Great Old One and is rumored to be trapped on an island in the southern Pacific Ocean called Relay. So the question is, has somebody really found Cthulhu, and is this proof that Cthulhu exists? Lovecraft lore does, after all, suggest that this anomaly is close to this place in the southern Pacific Ocean. Could he actually be there, dead and dreaming and sending us all nightmares? By the way, if you want to take a look at the photograph yourself, it can still be found on Google Earth entering a set of coordinates, which we'll give you on the screen. Number 4. Real-life Cthulhu monsters. If you don't think or believe that Cthulhu really exists, then this one might surprise you. But first, about the Great Old One himself. H.P. Lovecraft described the ocean-dwelling monster as anthropomorphic, meaning that it had some sort of human characteristics. However, the description of this creature doesn't really fit anything human at all. It could be that he meant that Cthulhu is known as having human traits, emotions, or intentions because the creature's not described as anything human-like at all. H.P. Lovecraft described this ocean-dwelling monster as having an octopus-like head with a face full of tentacles, a rubbery and scaly bloated body with claws and narrow wings. That doesn't sound anything human-like at all. And even though the creature is something of lore, there's actually a creature that exists that looks almost like the legendary Great Old One. These tiny creatures actually live inside the guts of termites, which helps them to digest wood. It wasn't until the researchers realized that the creatures actually looked like the cosmic entity that H.P. Lovecraft described that they decided to give it the name Cthulhu Microphasalumque, and also Cthilla Microphasalumque, which is named after Cthulhu's daughter, and I definitely nailed that both times. It's likely that you didn't realize that Cthulhu had any offspring, so now you've probably learned something new. So did I. You could say that this is kind of an ode to Lovecraft's Cthulhu mythos. When researchers first saw the creature under the microscope, they noticed its unique motion and said that they looked like tiny octopi swimming. When one of the researchers by the name of Eric James from the University of British Columbia first saw the creatures, it was Cthulhu and Cthulhu that first came to mind. And if you notice, the tiny microscopic creature uses its tentacle-like appendages to grab onto its food source and pull them into its mouth. If you imagine this creature far bigger than it really is, it would be terrifying for sure. The other, more terrifying thing about this microbe is that it's living in the intestines of another insect. By the way, here's something for you to digest, pardon the pun, but the average human body has over 100 trillion microbes in and on our bodies. Sweet dreams. Number 3. Ancient Fossil of Cthulhu. If someone was looking for evidence that Cthulhu actually existed, some well-preserved Cambrian-era arthropod fossils might actually prove it. This prehistoric giant bug fossil, which is called Fuchsiohana protensa, shows the creature had several tentacles coming from its face, just like the scary Cthulhu himself. This frightening creature actually lived deep in the oceans and crawled across the ocean floor and could be considered something that is straight from a nightmare. And while many people would think that this creature was some simple evolutionary creature, it was not so. In fact, this creature had multiple legs, and not just the ones on its face, which allowed it to quickly move across the ocean floor and go after prey. When the creature got close enough to the unlucky creature, it most likely used the tentacles on its face to grab and pull the creature to its mouth. If that doesn't sound to you like something Cthulhu would actually do, then you haven't been paying attention. This prehistoric arthropod is somewhat related to modern-day lobsters and spiders. It turns out that this scary-looking thing was one of the first creatures to develop legs, and it had a lot of them, something like a centipede or a millipede, and those things can freak anyone out. It's also believed that this was one of the first creatures to have a brain and a nervous system that extended beyond its head and was complex. The 520 million year old sea monster was on the Earth around 50 million years before animals emerged from the sea into land. Not only were these creatures scavengers on the sea floor, they were also predators, and they weren't just simple bottom mud feeders. And by the way, the animal's brain and nervous system show that these have remained constant in function and almost the same for more than 550 million years. With that said, maybe this creature was the earliest incarnation of Cthulhu. Number 2. Indonesian Cthulhu-like monster. The ocean is probably hiding all kinds of creatures from our nightmares. Humans haven't been able to explore most places near the ocean floor without the use of robotic camera equipment because these depths are simply too dangerous for humans. The atmospheric pressure in the bottom of the Mariana Trench is 15,750 psi, which, at sea level, is more than 1,000 times the standard atmospheric pressure. Without something that could withstand such pressure, the human body would be crushed in an instant. But all of that stuff doesn't mean there aren't creatures that are able to live at such depths. And it may be what had washed ashore in May 2017 on a beach in Indonesia's Maluku province. But this wasn't what looked like a whale or even something that anyone was able to identify. The carcass of the creature had what appeared to be tusks like that of a walrus or an elephant. And this was no small creature either. This was a massive 50-foot-long monster that looked like it had remains of what some say were tentacles. Some say that it must have been a giant sea squid or even an octopus. Others said that it was obviously a whale. But some researchers say that the deceased whales just float to the bottom of the ocean where they become food for an entire ocean floor ecosystem. So the question that some people had on their minds was, is this a Cthulhu that ended up washing up on the shore? Maybe not, but we never know what's hiding in the oceans and is ready to end up washing up on a beach somewhere in the world. Sometimes, some really bizarre things end up coming to the surface of the ocean, and some fishermen saw a giant floating balloon in the ocean which looked like it was something from an alien invasion. It turned out it was a bloated whale that was floating around in the water, but that's something that can really give you nightmares. Number 1. Giant Cthulhu-like squid. Sometimes a Cthulhu sighting isn't really a sighting of the great old one after all, but there's something out there in the deep ocean that could be this deity's guards or maybe even its cousins. The giant squid is something of a legend, or it used to be, as many would tell tales of these giant octopus-like creatures attacking boats or ships and using their giant tentacles to grab their victims and pull them into the water along with their ships. And actually, it was only recently that anyone knew that these creatures existed when the elusive creature that's never sighted or even rarely captured on video or film ended up showing up. A robotic submersible camera ended up capturing a giant squid. The camera was even joined by a diver who obviously wasn't afraid of being eaten by the giant creature and ended up swimming alongside the red and white tentacled sea monster. In fact, the diver said that his curiosity was bigger than his fears, so he just jumped in the water and got close to it. However, the squid was already in a defensive posture and was squirting black ink and trying to entangle the diver in its tentacles, probably forcing the diver to reconsider diving in after the creature. This squid, called a Toyama squid, was just about 12 feet long and was thought to be a juvenile because of its small size. Some giant squid can get as large as 43 feet long. The strange thing is that these creatures generally inhabit very deep waters, and it was a curious thing for the squid to be in such shallow water. Maybe Cthulhu's making a comeback and needed one of his soldiers to check things out. It should be noted that the giant sea squid was the likely inspiration for the Kraken sea monster from Greek mythology. And although the giant squid is not a part octopus, part dragon, part man-like creature, the giant squid shows us anything is possible when it comes to creatures living in the murky depths of the oceans. Hope you enjoyed the video, Top 5ers. If you haven't already, check out our other channel, Americano, to enjoy even more amazing list videos. There'll be a link in the description, so check it out, as well as our other cool